Okay, so I'm going to be working right now on just showing you guys how to use charcoal together when you have the black and white charcoal for this project. So with this project, you're going to be picking 3 different textures and you're going to have them gradually sort of blend into the other, you know, like transition from one to the next. And there's a bunch of examples online for that. This I'm just going to basically just show you kind of how to use the pastels just with an object, or not the pastels, the charcoal. So I have my white charcoal, and that's good for when I want to do the contour. Let me just make sure this is set up nicely. Okay. Start right here. Okay, so I have this like candlestick thing right here. It looks like that. And I'm just going to draw it and, you know, just kind of talk about, you know, some good things to kind of think about when you're using this material. So it's good to start your contour in either, again, you can use, well for this you can either use pencil, just your regular graphite, or you can use your white pencil. I guess the pro of the good thing about the pencil is that you can erase it really easily. This you can erase it fairly easily and you can see it a little bit better, but you probably can't erase it quite as easily as graphite. And again, when you're doing your contour at this point, you just don't want to press down at all. I'm not pressing down one bit. I'm just letting the material sort of graze over, the page. So I'm just going to do this quick contour, and of course when you do your contour you want it to be really precise. The more information you kind of give yourself to work with at the beginning, always the better. Okay. So what you're going to be doing with this is you're going to be using the white charcoal when you have the really strong highlights. You're going to be using the black charcoal when you've got your really, really strong shadows. And then you're going to be using kind of combining them together, blending them together when you want there to be kind of a mid-tone. Okay, so right now I look at this, and of course it's really like, this is a pretty shiny object, so it has a lot of nice contrast to it, which is one of the reasons I chose it. And you want to be kind of particular about the objects that you pick for every project. There's just certain objects that work better than others. Okay. So I'll start by looking at the object and saying, okay, well this is where it's really light, this is where it's really dark. So you might do that first, is just sort of identify, okay, well this part of this piece here is really dark. So I'll start putting a little bit of dark value. And then when I want midtones, which is kind of in the rest of it, like right in here and up in here, this area here, I want a mixture of the two. So again, you don't want to start by like just filling in the whole thing in either black or white. And sometimes people ask like, well, which one to start with first? I would kind of do that simultaneously, just sort of like look at where the dark value is, look at where the light value is, look at where the midtones are, and go from there. Okay. So if I had a blending tool, which I don't right now, it's the end of the semester, so it's like lost all my materials, or it's the end of the spring semester, the beginning of the May semester, but I can blend just with my finger. But you would probably be wanting to blend with your blending tool. You'll just be able to get like a little bit more crisp, like just control it a little bit better, which is good. So do as I say, not as I do in this case. Like I can control it okay, but I just think it's easier to use the blending stump for that. And so again, just sort of like mix that together. And there's a little bit of texture on there, so kind of like this. And again, you want like really strong contrast. I know that that's, my students kind of sometimes make fun of me because I'm always like contrast, contrast, I'm always going crazy about contrast. But when you have your drawing done, you'll notice that it makes such a big difference. Okay, so I have some dark value on here, and then if I mix in this like the white into the black, I get this kind of middle gray, and of course, if you remember, like, we've talked about value scale with this, with cross hatching, and with this assignment, you want to think about, okay, does your object have a nice full range of value? So you want to have darks, lights, and everything in between. You don't want to just have one gray. Like if you notice, I've got a darker gray here, and a lighter gray here, and a darker gray in here, and things like that. So you kind of want to mix it all together, just like that. Okay, so now right here, it's like a little bit, this sort of like piece comes up and over, and then there's this really dark shadow beneath that. So I'm putting in that dark shadow. And then I want to put in this piece that kind of comes up and over and connects this piece with this piece. And then this candlestick. And again, you sometimes get a little bit of dust on there, just sort of shake it off. Sometimes it's good just to kind of move the sheet of paper a little bit. It's not good for you guys because you guys can't see, especially when it goes dark. But it can be good to kind of just for your own like leverage. And again, it's so important with this that you never generalize. And so remember, we talked about that at the beginning. By generalizing, I mean you kind of just sort of stop looking at your object and stop really paying attention. I'm looking at my object constantly. Like I never really take my eyes off of it. I just will, keep looking back at it to make sure that I'm drawing it correctly. And I want to get this dark shadow a little bit crisper. So just go back into it like that and crisp that up. Okay, that's good. So now I want to do this part here. And again, this is going to look better and better like the more that I do. So, at the beginning, it'll look kind of weird. And then as you keep working, it'll look better and better. So I put a little bit more white on here because it's like I'm just looking at my object. I'm looking at where the lights are. I'm looking at where the darks are. And again, this piece here that kind of connects it continues to there, and it goes up like this. Now I need to add my dark values. So then it kind of comes up like this. And it's a little bit darker. So with this assignment, you're not going to be necessarily like drawing just sort of like concrete pieces of objects. You're going to be thinking about how like one texture can kind of feed into the other one. And so, you'll look at the examples and you'll get some ideas for how to go about this. But this is just sort of purely how to use the materials, how to blend the materials, how to get a good value range, things like that. So when I look at this, I notice that this kind of comes to about here. Now I need to do a little bit of blending, so I'll just sort of blend these together. And again, remember, I would recommend your blending stone. Get a little more precision. So this just gives you kind of an idea of how to use these materials. And you're going to be pressing down a good bit. You shouldn't see too much of the page coming through as you're working. You have a good bit of material on there. And you don't have to really be too worried about like messing things up. Like this material is pretty forgiving. You can go back over it a good amount until you get it the way that you want it to look. But remember, you don't want to have contour. You don't want to have like a big contour around it. So in a second, I'm going to show you exactly what you don't want to do. And that's sometimes I think that when people have problems with this assignment, they either do one of two things. They're just completely not looking at their object, like they just don't even have it with them when I've seen them in class. I mean, of course, you guys are on your own, but, you know, working at home. Or they like go around and they like contour the whole thing, or they don't have any contrast. So contrast, again, being probably, you know, one of your most important things. So just contrast being, you know, having really strong highlights, having really strong darks, and having everything in between. But really that light and that dark. Because again, like this is only going to look like a shadow if you have the highlight near it. If you just have black or white, it's just going to look like black or white. But if you have them together, like near each other, then it's going to look really good. It's going to look like it's supposed to. Right here, there's this little shadow. So sometimes you have to kind of go in and get these little precise details in there. And sometimes it's even possible to sort of blend it with the other charcoal, you know, like you want to maybe blend this in, and you can even do it with a little bit with the pencil. Just going to go into with the other pencil. Okay. So if you were to contour it, it would look like the contour all the way around it. So don't do this. Again, this is like, sometimes it's good just to talk about what not to do in addition to what to do. Okay, so see how that flattens it out? So you do not want to do that bad. If you do that, it just flattens it out and it just makes it look really unrealistic. So let me try to fix some of that. Go back in with a little bit more dark value. I mean, the good thing is it's usually pretty fixable, but just don't do it in the first place, and you'll be better off. Okay, so that's a little bit on using your charcoal. Keep sharpening it. You want to make sure that you're using like a 4B or a 6B, which is going to give you a darker mark. Make sure it's not like an 8B or a 2B. Your black value won't be dark enough. And just, make sure that you talk to me about what or email me what send pictures of what the object is that you're going to be using. That's really important. A lot of times people pick objects that just don't really work super well for this assignment. So picking that right object will kind of get you in the right direction just off the start. Okay, good.